Welcome to the Book Fair podcast. My name is Anthony, and this week we'll cover the return of Reading Rainbow with a new host, the startling news of school administrators using AI to ban books, and the $1.5 billion lawsuit settlement in favor of authors against AI tech company Anthropic. Let's kick off this week's episode with an interview with Leokadia George, author of the Trumpet the Miracle Wolf Pup series. Good morning, Leokadia. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Can you start off by introducing yourself to the audience and talking a little bit about the book that we'll be discussing today?
Okay, so my name is Leokadia George, and I wrote a series of books about one of the wolves at the Wolf Conservation Center. She's a Mexican gray wolf. She's critically endangered, as her whole species is, and I decided to write her true story down so I could share that with kids everywhere.
And what is your connection to working with wolves?
I volunteer at the Wolf Conservation Center, and that's actually where I learned of her story through some of the other staff members there. They kind of told me in snippets, and I was like, wow, this is just the perfect story for kids and, just to highlight the species and bring some joy and change the mindset about wolves.
And just to kick us off, can you tell us about who is Trumpet and what is her story very briefly?
So she's a Mexican gray wolf. They're also considered lobos. And she was born there, but what makes her story unique is that her parents, um, they really did have a fertility issue. And so she's the only descendant from her father's line. He was the number one genetically distinct wolf at the time. And so they really needed him to have a lot of wolves. And unfortunately, it was just one. And so they nicknamed her the Miracle Wolf Pup. And I was like, well, that's perfect. And as I learned a little bit more about her story, I found out why she got named Trumpet. And so I was like, well, this is just wonderful. So I'm just delighted to bring that story to kids.
And how did she get the name Trumpet?
The staff there wasn't really sure if there were any puppies, but they kind of had an inkling. Her mother's mammary glands were a little bit enlarged, and so they actually heard her. She was born in one of the capture boxes, and so they were like, "Wow, she's pretty loud." And so someone said, like a trumpet, and that's how she got the name.
So you're saying that she was born in a capture box. Can you maybe give us a little bit of background, maybe paint us a picture on what makes a conservation center different? How does it set apart from something like a zoo that most people may be familiar with?
So the Wolf Conservation Center deals just with wolves. They participate in the SAFE program, which is saving endangered species. Saving animals from extinction, and so they're a little bit more removed. They do have wolves that are for the public to see when they come do visits. Sign up for a program and they'll bring you to the wolves. But most of the wolves are actually off exhibit. So they have very limited contact with humans, which enables them to have the best possibility for potential release and to just not be accustomed to seeing humans around.
And what is it like working at the conservation center? What is your what is your day-to-day activities there?
So I originally started out assisting with the education program, which was, helping, escorting the public to come to the area to see the wolves with the educator and answering some questions. And as I got more involved, I now assist the curator with animal care. So really what I do there is I change the water buckets. So well, wolves need water.
And when you were working with the education program, were you involved with speaking with any groups like with students or with educators? What was your capacity there?
I would answer some questions. The educator was there to answer, to go through the whole program and answer more detailed questions. And then just make sure that, the public knew where to go. And so it was limited in that sense. It I'm trying to think when I decided to write the book, I think I was already working with the curator to do the waters. And so this was just another way to highlight the story and to bring it outside of the Wolf Conservation Center, which they do a great job of, working with libraries, other classrooms. They do virtual programs. And this is just another way to, get these the story of these wolves into the hands of families and to for other people to learn about these wolves.
And there are multiple locations for this conservation, isn't there?
Yes, so there's over 50 facilities that participate in this program, and so there may be either a zoo or a conservation center that is in the area of your public. So there's a number of zoos around my area: Beardsley Zoo, they have Lehigh Zoo, and they of course have the Wolf Conservation Center. And also in Massachusetts, where my publisher is, Stone Zoo, uh, actually has the sons of Trumpet's mother. So she went on to have more wolf pups with another male wolf, and she actually had nine the next litter. So she went from one to nine. Um, but yeah, Trumpet's the only one that was descendant from her father.
And where can people go to learn more about the conservation center?
So they, of course, can go visit the Wolf Conservation Center's site, which is newyorkwolf.org. There are other, places for to get information as far as these wolves, but the Wolf Conservation Center has pretty detailed, including the genetic history of all these wolves, if you want to take it to a very scientific level. So I definitely recommend that.
It's definitely great, like, to learn about the scientific side as well as seeing what you went through as a writer. When you decided to write this story, what were some of the first steps that you took to approaching this?
I wouldn't say it was easy, but the outline was there. It's her story. So I kind of just jotted it down. But one of the things that I really wanted to do was I wanted to make sure that people were connecting with the wolves rather than the people are in the story. So in order to do that, I kind of made it so that the faces of the people were not directly showing in the illustrations, but rather either a side profile or, the back of the head or somehow the face covered. So a good example is, I don't know if you could see that, but you see that the gentleman there, Alex Spitzer, he is not looking directly at the at the front so that the kids could see. But as far as the wolves, I definitely wanted to have them looking directly at the front so that the kids can kind of see their faces, see their emotions, and make a connection with the wolves themselves. And so I think that the illustrator did an amazing job doing that.
And what was the process like? Were you collaborating with an illustrator? Did you give ideas, or was it more of a thing where the publisher assigned an illustrator and kind of worked independently?
So the illustrator does work with the publisher, but she was working directly with me. We were communicating as how the illustrations should show what I was trying to say in the illustration. So it definitely was a back and forth, and I think it came out really well.
And what's that illustrator's name, just to give them a little shout out to make sure that we give them the proper credit?
Yeah, that's Maddie Moore. She's amazing.
Did you reach out to anybody with this idea, with this manuscript? Did you shop it around, or how did it get from idea to publishing?
So I was looking for a publisher. I didn't start out as a writer. If you asked me, 10 years ago, would I be doing this? And I would say, no. But this her story fell into my lap and I was like, this has to be told. So it was through a friend of mine. She recommended Briley and Baxter Publications. And so they donate to rescues. They're definitely animal lovers. And so she said, she'd be a good publisher for you. And that was how it happened.
It must have been really nice to be able to find a smaller publisher that was so closely aligned with your values on this project.
Yeah, no, that definitely helped. And especially since I was very new to this, um, she, Stacy O'Halloran, she helped me through the process, and that was key because I really didn't know what I was doing at all.
And when it came to the first book and then the second and the third and now the fourth, how much do you feel that you have learned in this process?
Oh, I've definitely learned a lot. And still have much more to learn. This is, always changing, evolving. When I started the series, actually, it was during COVID, and so there was a lot of lockdown, and that also changed the marketing aspect of it. So, you know, it was changing then and it's changing now, but there are always changes as far as like getting the books highlighted, so that people can learn, that this book exists.
Was there ever a time that you felt like maybe as someone who had an idea for a story, did you ever feel discouraged? Did you feel kind of down on the prospects of trying to get the book written, trying to get it published?
Yeah, definitely. There are ups and downs. This is definitely a humbling process. You think you write this amazing story, and everybody's going to be like, "Yeah," and the reality is most people don't even know about it. So it is a challenge as far as getting it seen, especially when you have so many books out there. You just have to find the path to let people know, hey, exists. And then, when people get the book, I get really great feedback. They really connect with Trumpet and her story, and really like it. And that's including, the young kids give me good feedback, and some of them and ended up becoming their favorite book. So
Did you ever think that when you started this, that you would actually be getting feedback from readers that felt a connection to the character, to Trumpet, or even the idea that anybody was going to read it at all?
um, I felt that they would have a connection with Trumpet just because her story is really interesting. And she's also she's got this complexity to her. She is one of our shyer wolves. In fact, when she was growing up, they had difficulty getting pictures of her because she was always kind of hiding. And so she is shy, but then she steps up. She's brave. She's spunky. She's got so many aspects to her, and I felt that would be something a lot of kids would relate to. Just especially, as kids start going into new places like new schools or new you know, uh, doctor's office, or so, these things do get highlighted. A Trumpet gets health checks in some of these books, and she's definitely scared. Not so much because of the health check, but because of the humans that are there. So, just to highlight that she's scared, that's something that kids definitely relate to, going to the doctor. So I did feel that they would connect with her.
So from the background on the Mexican gray wolves to Trumpet's miraculous birth, growing up, and her health checks, what are some more of the adventures that you explore with Trumpet through these books that have come out so far?
So one of the things that was part of her storyline is that she, you know, being that this is a breeding program to help save this species, um, she ended up having to leave her home, and it still was at the Wolf Conservation Center, but it was a different enclosure. And so she was paired with another wolf. So I highlighted that in the third one where Trumpet finds love. And that process of leaving home for the first time, being scared, being alone, and then meeting this new wolf, the stranger, and that process. And actually, I was a little surprised. That seems to be the book that that little boys like most. And I'm not really sure exactly why, but I do get feedback from them and that from their families that they really like that book.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? About what people are finding, what kind of emotional reactions you're getting from readers? Any feedback in particular that you've gotten from all of these stories that are ironically humanizing an animal with these human emotions that you're putting to the page?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely gotten a lot of excitement from kids. They really like to talk about it. I've gotten feedback. If I did a school reading, I've gotten feedback. They're still talking about trumpet. After lunch, and they're excited. And then from adults, I've gotten, as they're reading it, tearing up and, being like, this is really beautiful. I would like to say I tried to stay true with not humanizing the emotions. These are emotions that we've seen in wolves. And so, one of the things that we do notice, because it is a breeding program, it's basically matchmaking, but it's geneticists doing it, saying these two wolves are able to be paired together because they're not so closely related. Um, but some of them end up being love matches, and you can see that. And some of them wouldn't necessarily choose each other as far as emotionally. And you can see that too. And so I really tried to stay true as to what the wolves have shown us as far as their emotions. Um, in the third book, Trumpet becomes a mom, and she is an amazing mom. And we really saw her come into her own. She's cares for her puppies, she's very protective. And, she actually gave birth on camera, and we got to see her, nursing the puppies, caring for them. So she gave us the content and the emotions.
And now that Trumpet is a mother, what's coming next from Trumpet in this new book?
So, one of the things that the program does is that in order to help the wild population, which is in Arizona, New Mexico, and Mexico, um, they will actually take some of the puppies from the captive wolves, and they will fly them out to the wild to a denning site where the mother had puppies around the same age, and they will put those puppies into those uh, dens and with the other puppies. And wolves are one of the animals that will adopt other wolves. So, we do it when they're, before 2 weeks old, before their eyes have opened, even before they can see anything, they can see us. And so the first thing that they do when they open their eyes is see their family and the wild.
That's so sweet. Um, and can you give us any additional facts, statistics, trivia about Mexican gray wolves?
So they did become fully extinct in the wild, and they were reintroduced into the wild into the area that they would have been living, which is in all the way from Mexico, up to I think it's maybe the Grand Canyon area. perhaps even further north. But they lived through that region. But when they noticed the numbers going down, uh, it they actually captured them in a small area in Mexico, and it was I believe just 5 wolves and only one female. So the challenges as far as genetically to deal with that, that's definitely testing the line right there. But they did end up getting reintroduced, and they celebrate that every year during Lobo Week, which is the end of March, and that's where some of Trumpet's puppies actually have been cross fostered into the wild. So they did act, you know. They all get a chip. So when they do their annual count, they did capture, I think he was 5 months at the time, and it was one of Trumpet's puppies. So, they ended up putting a collar on that puppy, and, now they can track him, and so that's a really interesting thing to do.
I like to ask authors the same question to give them the final word for the interview. Leokadia, how do you see yourself and the work that you do as a writer?
More as a messenger. People do actually have, just a real interest in wolves. Um, some of it is actually fear, and some of it is curiosity. Wolves tend to be shyer, tend to try to stay away from people. So I see myself more as a messenger, just to say they have feelings, they have families, they're not looking to come up and eat humans, and so there definitely has been um, you know a fear created through some of these fables. Um, just trying to send the message that wolves, they're necessary, they're good for our ecosystem, but they're also an animal and they have feelings, and I just like to highlight that.
Thank you. That was an interview with Leokadia George. Her newest book, Trumpet Becomes a Mom, releases on October 7th. You can find more from Leokadia and other authors from Briley and Baxter Publications at BrileyBaxterBooks.com. Next, we'll be looking at notable new releases. But first, if you appreciate the work being done on the Book Fair podcast, there are a number of ways to show your support. First, you can like, comment, or follow wherever you are currently listening to help push the show to new listeners. Second, you can go to patreon.com/thebookfair to find episodes posted early, as well as links to news sources used throughout the show. Following the Patreon is free. There are no posts behind a paywall. You can also follow the podcast on Blue Sky at BookFairPod. Lastly, the best and easiest way to help the podcast grow is simply to share it with a friend, an educator, or a young reader in your life. Now, on with the show. Let's take a look at some new releases, starting with The House Next Door by Ellen O. Japanese-American 12-year-old Rory Parker becomes convinced that the house next door is haunted, following a frightening encounter with an elderly apparition, who cautions Rory that children aren't safe there. His suspicions solidify when one of the home's human residents, a fellow middle schooler, is injured in a mysterious accident. Soon after the family's departure from the house, Korean-American Jack Yoon, also 12, and his family move in, spurring Rory into action. He resolves to protect his new friend with help from his grandfather, who suspects a yokai is the cause of the haunting. Then, during a sleepover, Rory and Jack encounter Timothy, a young ghost who reveals the true nature of the old spirit's warning and the entity inhabiting the abode. Up against supernatural monsters who prey on children, Rory must take a stand, leveraging both evergreen adolescent worries and chilling depictions of things that go bump in the night. Ellen O cultivates an eerie, fast-moving tale of ghosts, creepy critters, and resourceful heroes, with horror elements that induce just the right amount of shivers. Details drawn from the characters' respective backgrounds, including each family's cultural cuisines, enrich the narrative as the children bond over their similarities and revel in their differences. This book is recommended for ages 8 to 12. Next, How to Say Goodbye in Cuban by Daniel Miyares. Using richly rendered watercolor illustrations accented by dark shadows, Miyares chronicles his father's childhood in Cuba. In the 1950s, Carlos grows up in the countryside, largely unaware of the growing tension between Fidel Castro and President Fulgencio Batista y Valdiver. Carlos's parents don't have much money or strong political ties, but after winning the lottery, his father starts a business and moves the family to the city of Matanzas. There, Carlos sees firsthand how protests and political unrest has shaped the metropolitan landscape. His father's good fortune is short-lived. Soon, Castro's army takes over and seizes the business. For nearly a year, Carlos's father disappears until he returns with a plan for the family to immigrate to the U.S. Vibrant hues portray the Caribbean setting in a story that's layered as emotionally as it is visually. Miyares effectively conveys fear, confusion, and relational shifts Carlos navigates during a time of social upheaval, depicted via single-page black and white interjections throughout. It's a reverent graphic novel about one immigrant family's experience navigating Cuba's tumultuous political history that offers a glimpse into the event's effects on future generations. This book is recommended for ages 8 to 12. Next up is A Little Too Haunted by Justine Pucella Winans. 13-year-old aspiring ghost hunter Luna Catalano always thought that her two mothers' jobs as home improvement influencers who renovated haunted houses were real, until she stumbles upon them faking a paranormal encounter and exposes them as frauds during a live stream. Their newest project in Cleveland is supposed to be a fresh start, and Luna is delighted to find that the house is actually haunted. But the resident specter seems decidedly unfriendly. The shade goes to increasingly frightening lengths to terrorize the family and frames Luna by destroying her mom's film equipment and even physically harming them. Recruiting her new neighbors, including horror novelist Evie, Luna must learn who or what is haunting her new home before the house claims another victim. But when an attempted exorcism goes wrong, Luna accidentally empowers the tormentor. In this atmospheric ghost story, the author conjures satisfying, spine-tingling scares and a cozy mystery alongside quiet moments of adolescent uncertainty. As Luna juggles issues stemming from irritable bowel syndrome, her first crush on a girl, and her desire for belonging, she undergoes an emotionally volatile but fulfilling journey of self-discovery. Luna chooses white, and this book is recommended for ages 8 to 12. Next up is The Many Misfortunes of Eugenia Wang, written and illustrated by Stan Yan. Yan blends slapstick tween humor with a spark of surreal horror in his clever debut graphic novel. Chinese-American 12-year-old Eugenia Wang and her overbearing Asian mom are at odds. Eugenia's mother won't let the tween celebrate her own birthday on her actual birth date, April 4th, doubly unlucky according to Chinese superstitions, and disparages her creative ambitions. When Eugenia requests permission to attend art summer camp for her upcoming birthday, her mother replies, "Art not helping you be a doctor or lawyer." Following a bonk to the head during a gym class rope climbing incident, Eugenia dreams about her house catching fire in a sequence that trades the illustration's gentle pastel hues for eerie red tones. Awakening in the nurse's office, Eugenia races home to draw her dream. As her birthday draws near and the red-tinged nightmare returns, Eugenia realizes that the fire will occur on her birthday, and she's the only one that can avert the impending disaster. Digitally rendered cartoon panels utilizing unique perspectives, including scenes depicted as being viewed from the corner of the ceiling, through stair rail banisters, and from high above, inject fresh energy into each scene. A note about intermittent Chinese dialogue, rejected cover concepts, and details about the creator's process conclude. This book is recommended for ages 8 to 12. Also, you can listen to an interview with Stan Yan about this book, posted by the Book Fair podcast on May 22nd. And the last release to look at this week is The Transition by Logan-Ashley Kisner. A white-cued transgender teen's recovery from top surgery takes a terrifying turn in this high-adrenaline horror novel from Kisner. 17-year-old Hunter is home recuperating post-op when he's mauled in his Chicago suburb backyard by a wild animal. Alarmingly, his wounds heal faster than they should, and he gets his period for the first time in years since starting testosterone. With his pilot father out of town, he turns to his best friends, hothead Korean-American hockey player Gabe, and imperious biracial, Filipina and assumed white, Mars, who suspect that the creature was a werewolf. Certain the only way to stop Hunter from becoming a werewolf as well is to track down and kill his attacker. The trio concocts plans based on myths and rumors. Simultaneously, Hunter begins hearing in his mind the voice of the creature, to whom he feels a kinship. Soon, the lure to join its pack and avenge himself against bullying classmates becomes too strong for Hunter to resist. Body horror elements involving rotten teeth and open wounds add grisly dimensionality to Hunter's mortal adolescent challenges, including his attempts to understand his attractions to both Gabe and Mars, and managing grief over a long-lost friendship, which ground the intensely emotional narrative. It's a thrilling, provocative parable about body dysmorphia and transformation, both earthly and mythical. This book is recommended for ages 14 and up. Now let's finish out this week's episode with some news stories. First, in political news, a former South Carolina state legislator, R.J. May, who was named Moms for Liberty's Legislator of the Year in 2023, is set to plead guilty to charges of exchanging child sexual abuse material. In the latest occurrence of every accusation being an admission, former member of the South Carolina State Legislature R.J. May has agreed to plead guilty to charges of soliciting and trading inappropriate sexual material of toddlers and young children on social media network Kick. May was named Moms for Liberty's Legislator of the Year in 2023. This post was made on Twitter in the year 2023, with May invited to speak at an event hosted by the organization in March of that year. May was arrested and indicted in June of 2025 for the exchange of 220 files that took place in early 2024. R.J. May used the screen name Joe Biden 69, and each of the 5 charges carries a potential penalty of 20 years in prison, meaning that May could see 100 years behind bars. He signed the papers agreeing to the terms of the deal, and on Monday is scheduled to appear in court to officially change his plea to guilty. May is a Republican that spoke against gender-affirming care for minors. In May of 2024, after the events in question, May spoke on the State House floor saying, quote, "We as legislatures have an obligation to ensure that our children have no harm done to them." End quote. Since his arrest in June, Moms for Liberty has quietly distanced themselves from Representative May. In public school news, coming from Texas, Leander Independent School District advises teachers to pause the use of 40 books that contain topics related to DEI. Texas has been in an arms race with other states like Florida and South Carolina for being the worst place for public education, with Senate Bill 12 passing earlier this year. The school district has put out a list of 40 titles to be removed from class instruction immediately, including classic titles like Victor Hugo's Les Miserables and Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. The Leander School District used AI to shorten a larger list of titles, then did a manual review for the final list of 40 books. This comes after another district in Mason City, Iowa, also used AI to identify books with, quote, sex acts under the state's Don't Say Gay bill. In Utah, a software called On Shelf is being used as a solution to navigating book bans. In Texas, there was no forewarning for the administrator's plans prior to the message being sent. Leander District teachers were largely blindsided by the order to remove certain books from shelves and stop using them in classroom instruction. To Kill a Mockingbird is a pivotal American classic used in history and social studies classes to illustrate the social ecosystem of segregation-era America and the prejudice against Black people at the time. A school board meeting is planned for October 9th, with plans for the community to stand in opposition to Senate Bill 12's enforcement. Residents of Texas are encouraged to write their state representatives to hold elected officials accountable if they oppose censorship, as well as to help spread the word of how its policies are affecting education in places like Leander ISD. In more positive news, judge approves $1.5 billion copyright settlement between AI company and authors. This year saw a landmark case in protecting the copyright of authors within the United States. The lawsuit was originally brought up by a team of authors and publishers stating that Anthropic had used books to train their AI language model without consent or paying royalties to the original authors. The text of the books was, in fact, taken from a pirating website, meaning that the copyrighted material was illegally obtained and illegally used by Anthropic. The settlement was initially reached in favor of the authors in the suit back in late September. However, Judge Alsup overseeing the case delayed approval of the final statement, giving time for lawyers to notify members of the class action lawsuit about the agreement, as well as give clearer definitions of how eligible authors and publishers would split the award. All parties together put the amount of each work is eligible to receive at $3,000, after fees and legal expenses. Many of the 7 million works were initially listed of the suit do not meet eligibility requirements, leaving only 482,000 titles that officially qualify for the settlement. However, all titles that were potentially leaked in Anthropic's use of pirating sites to train their model are at least seeing retribution against the tech company having to pay the astronomical fee of $1.5 billion. The Authors Guild released a statement. Quote, "The settlement marks a milestone in authors' fights against AI companies' theft of their works. It sends a clear sign to AI companies that infringement of authors' rights comes at a steep price and will undoubtedly push AI companies towards acquiring the books they want legally through licensing." Anthropic's official statement shows little remorse for the actions of the company, that the use of training the AI model meets the standards of transformative fair use, but the copying of books from pirate sites was not. This shows that even with the steep price tag, companies like Anthropic intend to continue training models off of copyrighted material. And if the cost of procuring titles legally is more than the settlement, it may not even encourage companies to seek licensing agreements in the future. And now, closing out this week's episode, Reading Rainbow is returning with a new host, Michael the Librarian. Reading Rainbow originally ran from 1983 to 2006 and was hosted by LeVar Burton. This week, after nearly 20 years off the air, PBS has announced the return of the classic series, along with its new host, Michael Threets, aka Michael the Librarian. Michael the Librarian is a social media influencer on Instagram and TikTok with over 1 million followers across both platforms. The new Reading Rainbow series will take place inside a real public library where Michael will introduce children to stories and lead activities with segments narrated by authors and celebrities. The original series, hosted by LeVar Burton, was canceled after funding challenges, with reruns continuing on PBS until 2009. With new cuts to PBS and the current presidential administration, it is refreshing to see a show that teaches and inspires, like Reading Rainbow, is able to return and hopefully thrive. The return is being helmed by Buffalo Toronto Public Media, with plans to establish Reading Rainbow as a leader in children's education programming, according to readingrainbow.org. And it is necessary to adapt to evolving digital media needs and delivery methods. This is likely the inspiration behind casting TikTok creator Michael the Librarian as the new host of Reading Rainbow. The reach of social media has helped people across various institutions share their passion for education and creativity. To learn more and see what else is in the works, you can check readingrainbow.org as it updates, or follow them on social media, as there is more to be announced about the series. This will conclude another episode of the Book Fair podcast. If you'd like to learn more about any of these stories, check out patreon.com/thebookfair. Thank you so very much for listening, and as always, I'll talk at you next time.